Okay, so let's set the scene. The Buddha gets invited to this pretty important meal. It's by a man named Prince Bodhi, and it's to celebrate the opening of his brand new palace. After they finish eating, the prince sits down and he doesn't so much ask a question as make a declaration, one that gets right to the very heart of the spiritual path. The prince looks at the Buddha and says, "Sir, here's what I think. Pleasure isn't gained through pleasure, it's gained through pain." Now that's a provocative statement, isn't it? It's this idea that to get anything worthwhile, to find any kind of real happiness, you have to suffer first. That all growth demands a struggle. And this really is the big question, right? Do we actually have to go through hell to get to heaven? Is pain the price we have to pay for genuine pleasure or awakening? It's a belief that, let's be honest, a lot of us hold in some way or another. Now, the Buddha doesn't just give a simple yes or no. Instead, he uses the most powerful teaching tool he has, his own story. He tells the prince that he himself used to believe the exact same thing. And then he just unfolds this epic journey of how he tested that very idea to its absolute limit. So, Section 1, a prince's provocative question. The Buddha kicks off his story by telling the prince, I've been there. I used to think that way too. He says to the prince, before my awakening, I too thought pleasure is not gained through pleasure, pleasure is gained through pain. And this is so important because it immediately connects him to the prince. He's not talking down to him from on high, he's speaking from experience, from having walked that very same path. Which brings us to Section 2, the search for a teacher. His quest to find what he called the supreme state of sublime peace led him to seek out the most famous meditation masters of his time. First, he finds a teacher by the name of Alara Kalama. Now, Kalama was a true master, and he agrees to teach this young, determined seeker. Kalama teaches him to reach something called the dimension of nothingness. This is a state of consciousness so incredibly deep that it goes beyond all thought, all objects. And here's the amazing part. The future Buddha masters it almost instantly. He doesn't just learn about it, he realizes it for himself and gets to the exact same level as his teacher. Kalama is so impressed, he actually asks him to lead the community with him. But the future Buddha has this crucial insight. This state, as incredible as it is, just leads to a high rebirth. It doesn't lead to true final awakening. It's not the end of suffering. And so, he leaves, disappointed. But he doesn't give up. He goes looking for an even more advanced teacher, a man named Udaka, the son of Rama. He's ready to go even deeper. And unbelievably, he does it again. He masters an even higher state, the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. We're talking about a state so settled that the mind can barely be said to exist at all. This was the absolute peak of meditation practice known at that time. And again, his teacher offers him leadership of the entire community. But the outcome is exactly the same. He realizes this is another dead end. It's a temporary state, not the permanent freedom he's searching for. So now, having mastered the highest teachings that were available and finding them all lacking, he comes to this huge conclusion. He's going to have to find the path entirely on his own. And this is where he decides to test Prince Bodhi's idea directly. He figures, if the highest mental states don't work, maybe the answer is in conquering the body through extreme, grueling pain. He basically sets out to wage war on his own physical self. And this really shows you how methodical he was. First, he tries to just dominate his mind with his mind. Clenching his jaw so hard, sweat pours from his armpits. Next, he tries the breathless absorption, holding his breath until the pressure feels like a drill boring into his skull. And finally, he goes to the ultimate extreme. He stops eating almost completely. The physical result was just devastating. He describes his body as totally emaciated. He says if he tried to touch his stomach, he'd end up grabbing his own spine. His eyes sank deep into their sockets. His hair fell out. He pushed his body right to the very brink of death, all because he believed that this pain would lead to liberation. And after all that, nothing. He concludes that no one in the past, present, or future could possibly inflict more pain on themselves than he had. And yet,
He hadn't gained any special knowledge, no awakening. The experiment was a total failure. The hypothesis was wrong. And in that moment of complete exhaustion, he asks the most important question of his life. Could there be another path?
Section 4, a new path. The answer didn't come from another teacher or some other grueling practice. Instead, it just surfaced from a simple, forgotten memory from his childhood.
He remembered sitting under a tree when he was just a boy, while his father was working. And with no effort at all, totally naturally, he just entered this state of deep, blissful meditation. It was a kind of pleasure that had nothing to do with sensual stuff, but it also had nothing to do with pain. It was a pleasure that was simply born of peace.
And that was the light bulb moment. He thought, why am I afraid of that kind of pleasure? He realized there was no way he could reach that blissful state with a body that was so wrecked and a mind so agitated by pain. The path wasn't about punishment. It was about creating the right conditions. So he ate. He nourished his body, got his strength back. And then, sitting down to meditate, he followed that memory. And with a healthy body supporting a calm and blissful mind, he was finally able to break through. He attained the 3 supreme knowledges and became the Buddha, the awakened one. So now, after telling his whole life story, the Buddha brings the lesson right back home for Prince Bodhi. He uses a really simple, practical analogy to explain what's truly necessary for success. He asks the prince, who was an expert elephant handler, could you train a man who was faithless, unhealthy, dishonest, lazy, or foolish? And the prince says, of course not. And that's the Buddha's final answer. Success on the spiritual path isn't about seeking pain, it's about cultivating the right qualities: faith, good health, honesty, energy, and wisdom. Pain isn't the key, these 5 factors are. And the prince is just completely blown away. See, the Buddha didn't just debate a point. He shared a deep personal truth that completely dismantled the prince's core belief and replaced it with a wiser, more compassionate path.
Prince Bodhi declares that this is now the 3rd time he's gone for refuge, once in the womb by his mother and once as a baby by his nurse. But now he's making the choice for himself. He says, from this day forth, remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. So the prince's original belief wasn't dismantled by an argument, but by a story. And it really leaves us with a question for ourselves, doesn't it? If wisdom, not pain, is the real path to growth, what unnecessary suffering might we be choosing in our own lives?